It's the show the establishment warned you about.
Welcome back. It's the Dr. Tommy Show. It's been a long time. To quote Robert Plant, since we rock and rolled, but we're back. And I'm glad you're joining us. We're broadcasting from the free state of Florida, from Echelon-Health Studios. And as far as I can tell, this is the only concierge medicine podcast available in the Tampa Bay area. So thank you for joining us. We've got a little bit of a busy day today. Has some things on the docket from Ace of Spades, Breitbart, and Gateway Pundit. And one of the things I just want to start it off with is there's this movie out. It was in 2023. It's called Sisu. It's a Finnish movie, and it's about this guy who is a farmer who's trying to get away from the Lapland War, where there was a takeover of Finland by the Nazis, and then the Nazis were being kicked out of Finland, and there was a war. And I just wanted to show you a clip of that, and just to get you a little taste of it, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. This is from the trailer called Sisu. Oh yes, watch out for children. This is.
Get down on your knees.
Fuck him up!
Oh, there you go.
He got gold!
Oh, and it gets worse from here. I don't want to spoil it, but anyway, that is a movie called Sisu, and just watched it last night for the first time, and it was funny. It's a combination of Rambo, probably Michael Myers, and maybe a little bit of Quentin Tarantino and Inglourious Bastards, because the Nazis are the bad guys in this movie. So I recommend it. It's called Sisu. I think I saw it on Peacock, and you have to watch two ads, one in the beginning and one in the middle, which is not too bad, considering you have to pay for it. But still, there's some on Disney that you have to watch more than that. I mean, you might as well not even pay for it. But that's Sisu. It's on the Peacock, like I said. It starts off like this, and it gets worse. Worse meaning more gory. Not worse in terms of quality of entertainment. I think it's at times hilarious, and it's a feel-good movie. And if you're into killing Nazis, and I don't know, I guess Nazis are the only thing now that you can universally hate without any pushback. You can't hate communists because so many of our friends on the left are communists themselves. So communists you're not allowed to really hate communists. Some of the members of Obama's administration, I remember one of them, I can't remember which one it was. Chairman Mao was one of her heroes. So you can't hate communists, but everybody can hate Nazis. You're okay to hate Nazis. The whole Indiana Jones franchise, except for one movie, was about Nazis, I think. I didn't see this last one, the Indiana Jones and the... I don't think anybody saw it, actually. It's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which is the only one that George Lucas wasn't involved in. I guess he went ahead and just bailed on that. But anyway, the Dial of Destiny was not something that George Lucas was involved in. And like I said, not many people saw that. And I saw all the Indiana Jones prior to that. I saw the early ones in the 80s. I didn't see them when they came out, but I saw them later. The one I like the most, and probably a lot of people like the most, is the one with Sir Sean Connery in there. So that was a good one. And then there's also the earlier ones, which are the original, was it Temple of Doom and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Raiders of the Lost Ark is the first one, and Temple of Doom is the second one, and the Temple of Doom is a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, which makes things confusing. But in case you're scoring at home, that's the case. And then there was the one about the aliens, which was called, what was it called? It was called, oh goodness, it was, I'll have to come back on that one. Anyway, welcome back to the show. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was the Trump grades. So Donald Trump has been in office now since January Today it's 7 months, and so far so good from my standpoint. But it's interesting today because I had a patient come in, and she asked me, "How do you think Trump's doing?" And I said, "Well, I think he's doing great." And actually, I told her, I said, "You're the third person to ask me that, and of the only people." And I said, "Well, how do you think he's doing?" And she says, "Well, I like it." I said, "Well, I like it too. And I think he's doing great. And I would want him to go further." I'm one of these extremists who believes in constitutional government. And as you all know, or most of you know, that Constitution today is a mere, it's kind of like something you talk about that is historical value, and you use it depending on your, depending on what you're trying to achieve. You use it as an excuse to do things, or you ignore it when you want to do things, and then you pretend like it's just an old dusty document that we shouldn't even concern ourselves with anymore. But I said, I think Trump's doing well, and I'd like to see him go further. I would like to see, gosh, there's so many different things. Department of Education is trying to be shut down, doing it through an executive authority. He'll have to do it eventually through. He'll eventually have to do it through legislation in the Congress if they do it. But either way, he's trying to do that. And I said, "What do you think?" Because she says, "I think the same thing." But there's two other patients I had who, interestingly enough, asked me the same question, I guess within the last month. And one of them did not appreciate that he shut down USAID, which was amazing to me because I thought USAID shutdown was a brilliant strategy, and I didn't realize at the time. I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. He's going after USAID. I wonder why. And USAID is what is it? It's a way to give money out to different countries to spread the goodwill about America, spread the good news, so to speak, and it's supposed to make people feel good about America and basically strengthen us throughout the world with our diplomacy and help us to basically maintain a stranglehold over domination of political culture in the globe through USAID and through giving our money, taxpayer money, to all these different organizations. Well, it turns out USAID is largely spent on far left activities, and you can read about all the different things. I think Rand Paul did a good job going through some of the very absurd things that were listed under the aegis of USAID. But overall, USAID has also shown to be a way to funnel money to activists. And who are the activists? Well, do you remember during the first Trump administration how there was these protests, widespread protests across the nation? And it could be for anything. And they just sprung up overnight. And there were bricks in the streets, and there were, all these things all waiting for the protesters to show up. So it's like, something happened, Trump did something, and then next day there's protests, and there's protests in New York City, there's protests in California, there are protests everywhere. And it just organically happened overnight, and they're just everywhere. Well, you didn't see that the second time. You saw a few protests here and there, but the only real organized protest that they did, they did something called a Day of Kings, which was interesting. That didn't really do much, but one of the things they did was the Elon Musk, Musk is a Nazi, of course, and they said Musk is a Nazi. Actually, I was able to see one of these protests. I was driving to Port Canaveral for a cruise, maybe, or something. Anyway, passed by a Tesla dealership, and there's these people gathered out front chanting. It was probably maybe 30. And we drove by and waved at them, and they were all chanting. But it struck me as they were mostly almost uniformly white, older, maybe in their 50s or even older. And that was the only real organized protest that you saw. And then later on, I was reading an article that said the reason they went after USAID right away is because USAID was funding all these different protests. And then if you look at it later on, you're like, you know what? It seems to be right. There is a lot of funding of protest, or there is a dearth of protest compared to before, and potentially or probably it's because of USAID. It's because the fact that there was no money coming in to fund these guys. And it was interesting. We're down in Key West. Oh gosh, when was that? July. No, July was last month. Anyway, I think it was in June. Anyway, it was a week of Gay Pride. Okay, whenever that is, I don't remember. And they were shutting down blocks, and they put up the barricades, and they were going to have a block party. And we were driving around, and we had to go around this barricades because we were using our little golf cart that we rented, and we drove around, and there was no Gay Pride parade. I mean, there was no Gay Pride celebration. There was blocked off. They had some music going. They had piped in speakers and such, and but there was few participants in Key West. And I was interested in that. And the guy who was driving us around, actually, the golf cart guy who took us to the get our golf cart, picked us up, took us to the golf cart place. He said that he grew up in Key West. His family, I guess, had a summer home there for many years, and he had gone away, and he had recently been moved back to Key West after being out. And he said that, yeah, he noticed that the festivities were not as extravagant and as widespread as they used to be. And I was interested in that. I said, well, I used my knowledge, and I said, well, I think it's because of USAID. I said, I've seen that there's a lot of, different things that were funded before by USAID, which was taxpayers, and a lot of this funding is not going on. And that's what my hypothesis is. I may have even said that was the reason, pretending to know everything. But I said, that's what I think is going on. And he said, well, I didn't know that. And so I got back home, and then I was Googling, and I said, has the cancellation of USAID hurt Gay Pride celebrations? Hit send and whatever, and then lo and behold, here comes a article from it was a website that was about gay culture, and sure enough, it says it right there. It says USAID cancellation has led to the cancellation of many Gay Pride events. So I read further into it, and apparently it said that USAID was, among other things, funding corporations to donate to Gay Pride events. And so if you had a local parade or something, and then let's say Echelon-Health wanted to donate $5,000 or $10,000, whatever, and to the Gay Pride, well, we could donate that to that. And then there was a program from USAID where you would get your money back. So it's a no-brainer. So you're like, well, sure, I'll donate to your cause because I'm going to get my money back. And according to this article, and I didn't research it further, but because it backed up my initial thoughts, so then that's what I do. I just go ahead and no. Anyway, so I didn't research it any further, but it made sense to me. So if the USAID's been canceled, then all of these corporations that were donating were getting paid back, and then suddenly you cut off the spigot, then boom, USAID goes away. So anyway, that was one patient's beef, was that USAID was cut, and he should have gone in and cut it more carefully and not cut. He should have only cut the left-wing initiatives. My argument is every USAID initiative was most likely left-wing, and the reason it was because it was approved for funding. And that's my way of looking at it. And another patient thought that the Trump was not doing a good job, or he was doing a okay job, but he felt like he was being too aggressive with the deportations. He said that if Trump had just gone to the governors of these different states and said, look, we want to deport people, work with us, we're going to deport the criminals only. He thinks the governors would have just said, okay, well, we'll do that. So Governor DeWine in Ohio, Governor Pritzker in Illinois, Governor Newsom in California would have said, you know what, you're right, Donald, kumbaya, let's deport these criminals together. And that's what his thought was. I don't know if that's the case. I don't think it would be. But anyway, those are two different opinions. So there's three opinions from patients. 66% says Trump is getting not doing a good job or could do better. And then one patient said Trump is doing a good job and wants more. And I'm in that camp too, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. All right. So speaking of left-wing stuff, this is pretty. This is from Breitbart. So this is it says Toronto Film Festival tries to walk back cancellation of October 7th documentary. So apparently the Toronto Film Festival had a documentary that was planned for their festival, and it was about the attack on Israel on October 7th. And the reason why, according to some, that they canceled it was because they said, as according to Breitbart News reported, it says here, the Toronto TIFF, or Toronto International Film Festival, quote, canceled a documentary about the October 7th, 2023 terror attack, ostensibly because of concerns that Hamas might have copyright claims to footage of its murders. And now that's, I guess they're trying to walk it back. But isn't that amazing to you? It's amazing to me. But at the same time, it's amazing, but it's not amazing because the woke amongst us are extremely, let's say, different thinkers. And when you think, the first thing you think of when there's a film about that event, that terror attack, the first thing you think of is the copyright claims of Hamas for filming the murders, which they live streamed on purpose. And that's the reason that makes you in the woke category, and that's Toronto and Toronto International Film Festival. Now they're trying to walk back the thing. I don't know what they said here. Who knows? It said that I'm not gonna worry about it, because to me, the first time you say it is what you really mean. And I believe that they probably really did believe that the Hamas people deserved their copyright claims. It is not surprising to me. But wokeness is, like I said, wokeness is a thing that, what they call it, the mind virus. And it's infected a lot of things culturally. And here's a thing that affected culturally most recently that was in the news. Let's see if we can bring this up here. So this is Sydney Sweeney, and she is let's see here. She's the one that is the actress who has the great genes.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality.
Here she's buttoning her pants up and zipping
and even
them
eye
up.
color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes.
Ooh. And that
Genes
was
are
set
passed
off
down
a firestorm of controversy amongst the wokes amongst us. And look at this ad. Look at this. For you watching, you can see it, but I'll describe. Here she is unbuttoning her pants.
Like hair color, personality,
Or buttoning them up.
and even
I'm
eye
sorry.
color. My genes are blue.
That to them is Nazism right there. Pure Nazism, according to the woke amongst us. And in this article, it says, this is from Breitbart again, it says, woke fail. Surprisingly, listen to this. Woke fail. Just 12% of Americans find Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad offensive. Now, that doesn't include the people who find it offensive because it's too risque. If this was in 1950, or in the past, they would say, well, it's too sexualized, blah blah blah. But these are people who are finding it offensive because of the Nazism that is being espoused here by Sydney Sweeney, talking about her good genes, not the play on words, not everything else. I don't know what else to tell you except to say that it is a kind of a mental disturbance, I think, and I'm not going to say that as a doctor, but I'll say that as a commenter. I think it's a mental disturbance. I have not had to treat anybody for woke mind virus. I think you treat it most likely through talk therapy. I find talk therapy is actually good for a lot of things, and if it is a virus, let's say, it is probably not fatal, because there's a lot of people who are, I don't know if it's not fatal, but it does, let's say it doesn't kill you, but it may harm you. I mean, if you look at a lot of people who are woke, for instance, there's a great I'm not going to bring up any pictures, don't feel like searching for them, but there's this commentator called SE Cup, and SE Cup used to be with the Blaze, and back in the day, this is 10 years ago probably now, SE Cup was a young upstart, attractive, conservative female, and back then that was kind of that wasn't very common. I mean, most conservatives were like, old, white, and here's this young female conservative named S.E. Cupp, and she was on the Blaze, and then she went on to her own thing. Well, somewhere along the way, and it has to do probably with being hired by CNN, is she became woke, or more woke than she was before. And now, but if you look at her, there's a transformation. It's a physical transformation. She has gone from being, like I said before, young, attractive female to not so good anymore. And I attribute it to the woke mind virus, because it does, like I said, it does age you. Let's see if I can find it here. Before and after. Let's say woke. Let's see if there's a picture. Someone else has looked it up for me. But yeah, she looks like she's become woke. And the same thing happened to same thing has happened or is happening to people like Rosie O'Donnell. They have been very much taken over by this mind virus that has done some bad things. But I think it's treatable. I think there's more. I think there's things that can be done through talk therapy for that. And it's really for the benefit of that person and also the people around them, especially their family members. What else we got here? So, Donald Trump, back to what he's doing. So what he's done now, he's shut down the Department of Education, or he's trying to. He's trying to, through tariffs, which were going to destroy the economy, he's trying to basically level the playing field, so to speak, for our products in other countries. I know people say, well, he doesn't understand economics, he's stupid, blah, 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 blah. Tariffs are a tax. And if you look at it from the standpoint of, as a tariff straight up, if you say, okay, I'm going to tax Chinese products with a 100% tariff, are you eventually going to pay more for your Chinese products? Yes. Eventually, if all things held constant. But that's not how Donald Trump is trying to use tariffs. He's using tariffs as a negotiating tactic. And he's using tariffs in a way that any president before him could have done it, but never thought to. And what's the reason for that? I have honestly no idea why no previous Republican has ever tried to stand up for the United States, except to say that they were probably paid not to. Let me back up and say all that. So tariffs lower the, if you use tariffs like Trump's trying to use them, you're trying to say to China, for instance, let us have access to your markets. And China says, no, we're going to put tariffs on your products that are very high. Well, all Donald Trump said is, okay, fine. We can play at this game. I'm going to put tariffs on your products that are very high too. And then suddenly everyone squeals and goes, oh my God, no. Well, what would happen in the short term or in the long term, if you left it where Chinese had high tariffs on our products, and and tariffs from Chinese products were minimal or zero, then what would happen is companies then could offshore their productions to China and make a bigger profit. Now, that's good for companies, and that's good for multinational companies, global companies, because at the end of the day, they want to make more profits, which, God bless them. But when you're trying to build an economy and you're trying to have a nation, you can't just look at it from the economic standpoint, because you become weak at that point because of things like loss of production at home of certain things that are necessary, like masks and gloves and things like that we found during COVID. Pharmaceuticals, that's another one that would be nice to have some of that on home territory, so that, God forbid, we got in a war, that we suddenly don't run out of all the lisinopril and all the people just run around with hypertension all the time. But also you need to build up your base in the middle class. And so what happens is there's this net, let's say there's a net, let's say the same amount of money is made in the end of the day. And let's say the same amount of money is made with no tariffs on China as 50% tariffs on China, or 25% tariffs on China. Let's say at the end of the day, the same amount of money is made. Well, that may be true. But if you have tariffs on China long term, what the strategy is for the same amount of money, or probably, hopefully, more money to be made. And the amount of money that is divided up between the owners of the corporations, the shareholders, and the people who work for them is more equal, so that the shareholders and the owners of these corporations aren't just making all the money. Some of the money is being used, and wealth is being created, and wealth is being obtained by the people who work for these corporations. And that's the goal of Donald Trump. And that's actually, if you look at it, that's what they call it, populism, is you would think, and that's probably why Trump won, is you would think that would be a goal of Democrats as well, is to build up the middle class, give the middle class some flexibility in their lifestyles by having increased incomes. And incomes are soaring under Donald Trump. For one of the reasons is they're kicking out illegal aliens. And then, again, back to my theory about tariffs, illegal aliens are now having been removed from the workforce. Corporations having to pay more for labor. And I just saw something that said that Joe Rogan's mad about ICE raids. I didn't read the article, and I don't know if that's what he said. Not, it may have been distorted. It may have been a complete lie. But anyway, I guess Joe Rogan said that, we're basically deporting the landscapers, which there are some landscapers that have most likely been deported. But the idea is that I have who was it was telling me about? There's a roofer. It was a roofer. He had a company that had a lot of employees. He had 18 employees, I think he was. And it was him and his son and these 18 employees. And he always hired people who were who were citizens. He made sure that he did not hire illegal aliens to work for him. And over time, he ended up paying more and more and more. Well, all the corporations that he was all the companies he was competing against, they used illegal alien workforces. And so basically he was driven out of business, and he now has a roofing company. It was just him and his son, and he could not compete against the cheap illegal alien labor. This actually, now that I think about it, this was a story that Tom Homan told to somebody. And he said that when he was hiring someone to do his roof, he was trying to find a company that guaranteed that they didn't use illegal alien labor. And he found this company with these two people, father and son, and that's the case. That was their story. Anyway, but that's what happens is you kick out the illegal aliens, and then they say, well, we have to pay more. We're going to have to pay people more to pick lettuce now. They won't pick it for, $5 an hour. Well, so what? That's what's going to have to happen. Because if it doesn't, you're going to constantly be dependent on this slave type of labor. And that's an analogy you can use, because that's what the South did. They had slave labor. And eventually their economy, there's historians who'll say that if the Civil War had not happened, that the economy of the South would have crashed anyway, because of its dependent on slave labor, and it wasn't able to operate without slave labor. And eventually it would have collapsed anyway, even if there was no Civil War. But we can't have in our country, I don't think, a economy that's dependent on grossly underpaid employees. And that may end up meaning that you're going to have to pay more for your lettuce, or it may end up meaning that the lettuce company is going to take less of a margin, because there is a market for things. And as much as people like salad, once the lettuce price hits a certain amount, they're not going to eat lettuce. So you have to figure that out. The other thing about the illegal alien stuff is that the more illegal alien labor you have, the worse those people are treated. It's just like, if these employers use illegal alien labor, then there's no reason to have them taken care of well, because if they get injured on the job, let's say, or get sick or whatever, why would you ever report that this person got sick or have them taken care of in a fashion that you would a normal citizen? Because if you do, then they're going to be found out that they're illegal. And then if you're a bad boss, let's say, and I'm sure there's exist out there, you could threaten them and say, look, you may very well have been bitten by a snake while picking lettuce. But guess what? If you go report that I did this and I didn't pay you enough and you had to go to the ER and now you're going to raise hell about me not taking care of you as I should because you were picking lettuce under my watch for my company, I'm just going to have you deported. So there's that. So this idea that illegal alien labor is somehow virtuous is, to me, doesn't hold water, that argument. But I think the Trump, the tariffs are doing well. He's doing well with the tariffs. He's shut down the Department of Education. And I think he's making peace throughout the United States, throughout the globe. Something like, I don't remember how many wars have been started and stopped under his watch now. And now he's taken over D.C., and that the usual suspects are complaining about that. I saw here, it said that Democrats in D.C. are complaining about Trump stopping the crime. But it's going to be one of these situations. I think it's going to be like the tariff situation where there's going to be a lot of turmoil and hand-wringing beforehand, but the benefit of the action is going to take place so quickly that they're not going to be able to have any long-term traction from that argument. So the tariffs went into effect. They said they're going to make inflation go through the roof, and it didn't. And then when it didn't, now the tariff, anti-tariff argument, all the wind has been taken out of their sails. And I think in D.C. what will happen is you're going to see such a dramatic decline in the crime due to Trump's interventions that it's going to take all the wind out of the sails of those who say, well, this is a hostile takeover, even though the Constitution, here it is, Article 1, Section 8 says, this is the United States to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, meaning the District of Columbia, as may, by cession of the particular states and the acceptance of the Congress, become the seat of government for the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature. Anyway, so the Constitution says the federal government has jurisdiction over Washington, D.C., no matter what these Democrat politicians have to say. But I think there's going to be such an improvement in the crime situation that it doesn't matter what the initial complaints were. The proof is in the pudding, and once the proof is shown that the people could walk the streets without being murdered, there's going to be less argument against it. It's the same thing goes for the illegal, or for ICE, ICE raids. It's the same thing. I think you're starting to see a Trump doctrine. The Trump doctrine is go out, do whatever you think is the right thing to do, based upon whatever your advisors, your experience, whatever's in your heart, whatever the case is. Pick something, be sure about it, do it, ignore the critics, wait for the results, and then move to the next thing. And I think him doing that has got the other side on such a they don't know which way. They don't know whether to sit or wind their wristwatch. They don't know whether to they don't know which way it's going to be coming next. And he's moving at such a breakneck speed that I think that is what is most impressive about this second Trump 2.0 compared to the first go around. Plus the fact that he's not being harassed by Robert Mueller, who actually I've read or I saw that he's now in a memory care facility because they subpoenaed him to come testify before Congress, and they said, sorry, he can't make it. He's in a memory care facility. Yes, what else is this? This is from another one from Breitbart. It says, Scott Bessent, he's a Treasury Secretary, to push for a ban on single stock trading in Congress. I think that's a great idea. single stock trading in Congress probably is how Nancy Pelosi is so successful. I haven't looked into it, but Trump said that she's trading better than any of the hedge funds. And if they could do that ban, then you might see a little bit less of the corruption we see with the insider trading. What else we got here? Let's see. One other thing I wanted to say, doing a media review, we did this Sisu movie. There's a book out there. I just recently completed it called Crime and Punishment. If you haven't read it, I listened to it. I won't pretend that I read the whole thing, but I listen to books because I don't have time to read them. But it's by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and it is a great book. It is about a young law student who, for reasons that become clear over the book, has decided to do something very wrong. And the reason he's decided to do it, because in his theory that great men have always done, not always, but great men in history have many times done very bad things, including murder, in order to achieve the ends, and the means justify the ends in his mind for great men. And he thought he was a great man and he needed some money. So he goes about to do this. And the book itself reads to me like a screenplay. And I wish the Coen brothers would do it, because to me, they would be the ideal choice to helm a movie on crime and punishment. The movie has been made before. I guess the most famous one apparently is a Russian version. I have not seen any of the versions. There's an American version that was made, I don't know, fairly recently, I guess in the 2000s, that had John Hurt in it. I have not read that. And it's Crime and Punishment, but it's not a period piece. And I would like it to be a period piece. I'd like it to be made in the current time, which in the book was written in 1866. And it was Russian. And I guess it is contemporary to that time. So 1860s would be a cool time to put it in Russia. But Crime and Punishment is a good book to read if you haven't read it. And like I said, it reads like a Coen Brothers movie, just with kind of black humor. It's a bit of a thriller, and you don't know in the end what's going to happen. And certainly there's some elements of Fargo with the tragedy that befalls people, and the lack of anybody who's actually a really good person among the major protagonists, let's put it that way. And that's what's so great movies a lot of times, or great works of any type of media or literature, or there is no black and white, like, oh, this is the good guy and that's the bad guy. There's, it's kind of like Unforgiven, the protagonist there is a murderer who, as he said in his own words, he killed women and children. So, but he's the hero of the show. He's the hero of the movie. And I think that's kind of what drives a lot of the great movies, is there's no clear indicator. This other movie I saw recently, this is a good one. Lonesome Dove. Lonesome Dove is a mini-series that came out in 1988 with Robert Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones. And those guys are cattle bosses, or trail bosses, and they're driving a herd of cattle from Lonesome Dove, which is near the border of Texas, Mexico and Texas, and they're going to go to Montana. And the movie, which is a series, and it's over 4 hours, because each episode, there's 4 episodes, is over 4 hours, so that's over an hour, so it's probably about 5 to 6 hours. Anyway, I was told to watch that some 20 years ago by my buddy Dr. Beathy here in town in Tampa, and I never watched it. And I guess I didn't watch it because I didn't have it, and also because I thought that Lonesome Dove sounded like it was too non-violent for me. I like movies of, like I said, my favorite movie is Unforgiven, which is all about retribution and murder and things of that nature. And to me, when I heard the Lonesome Dove, it sounded like it might be a Hallmark type movie, and I didn't. But actually, Lonesome Dove, I can't believe it was shown on network television after having watched it, because there's some interesting things that happen. There's talks of prostitution, there's murder, there's all kinds of things, and I'm surprised. But Lonesome Dove is a great movie. Tommy Lee Jones plays a cattle boss named Walcott, and his counterpart is Robert Duvall, who is what's his name? Oh God, McRae. And McRae and Walcott are the heads of this thing, and then they make their way to Montana, and along the way they encounter a lot of things. And if you haven't seen that, I recommend it highly. So Sisu, Lonesome Dove, Crime and Punishment, those are 3 media recommendations for today. And if you haven't, I'm going to pick up a new book today from Dostoevsky called The Brothers Karamazov, I believe is the name of it. Anyway, it's another audiobook I'm getting. But that's something to look out for. But anyway, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. Join us next week for more Dr. Tommy Show. And in the meantime, if you want to find out more about what we do, you can go to our website here. And there it is. Here's drtommy.com/podcast. And you can get all the podcast information that you want about what we do in the podcast, and then some links there and everything else. And then join us next time, and we hope you have a good one. Until next time, we'll be seeing you.